Society of the Sacred Pixel. Welcome, Obi Chaney. I met Obi at Adobe Max in October of last year. We chatted about stuff, and he told me about his position. So he's going to speak to us today about designing for Major League Sports. Welcome, Obi.
Good meeting you all. Great sitting through your guys' introductions and, seeing where everyone is right now in their journey. Again, I'm Obi Chaney. Right now designing for multiple sports teams here in Atlanta. I am particularly in the corporate partnerships department within my organization. So we tend to focus on mainly presentations, design-wise, kind of gearing up and teeing up what the sponsors will buy in their packages. So, for example, if you were to watch a game and you see, hey, this game is presented by AT&T or T-Mobile, what we do is go in and, break down those deals and make mock-ups to show them what they're getting, which, makes it worth their while. So a little bit about my background. Started graphic design maybe, I'll say junior year of high school. And that was just from being around in Atlanta and everyone doing music, including myself, and people needed cover art. So started with cover art, helping out those around me, and just took a liking to it, showed some natural talent. So I took that and took it to school, wanted to become a bit more well-rounded because my strength was more so in navigating in the program versus just raw natural ideation and creativity to come up with the concept from scratch. So went to school to, kind of balance out the skill set and be more well-rounded in the illustration, more well-rounded in my drawing, my 2D skills, my dimensions. So that's where it started, and definitely came out of school, continued to freelance, continued to contract, continued to build my own brand and build my own portfolio until organizations started taking notice. So most recently, I'm here in Atlanta with the sports teams, but preceding that, I spent some time with different agencies, most importantly, the Census Agency, where we worked on a lot of different CDC projects, different government agencies, Department of Transportation. And while I'm very, very thankful for that work, it was a lot more red tape than you could imagine. Working here in the sports field where everything's fun, exciting, you get to kind of, be a bit more creative and think less about stepping on toes or how the public will perceive what the campaign is. We hold different events throughout the year. Some of my favorites are our flyaways, where we go to an away game with a handful of our favorite sponsors and their people. So with this one being my favorite, this was my first flyaway with the team when we went to Chicago, and they absolutely loved the concept here. And it didn't just stop at flyers with most of these. It's a whole rollout of TV banners, email banners, credentials, key cards, bus tags that all have the same look and feel, just in different shapes and sizes, different information on them, just to be keepsakes at the end of the day for the people attending these events. Joining formally the sports side of graphic design, I met with one of my favorite people. His name is Steven Johnson. He's a former NFL player. And we basically connected through social media somehow many, many years ago. And I had been making a lot of his graphic design since then. He's retired and moved on to start a 7-on-7 league, which myself and a different graphic designer have collaborated to get a lot of their uniforms together, a lot of their looks and feels for their sportswear and equipment, websites, things like that. So that was my introduction into being able to have the visibility of the sports world on my work. Steven Johnson, and then he passed it on to other players, and other coaches would see it. So you'll hear me say throughout this session that, your network is just as important as the work that you're putting out. Your network can put you in front of eyes that, that will get you to the doors that you're trying to get to. So you can have great work, but that's only half of the battle there. I wish I had the original painting that the client made for this, but basically she painted it and I flipped it over to a digital painting. It looks nothing like the original painting, but I'm just brushed it up and made it more dynamic, put a little more detail into it for. So this is a very fun project from last year, and I love outer space, so I jumped on this project pretty quick. And just some packaging design, just wanted to highlight how important the presentation of your designs are. Again, it's great to display a logo just flat out on the screen. It's great to display different things, but the presentation of it takes it to the next level. A nice clean mock-up. You see the logo on this isn't really groundbreaking, but the presentation of the boxes, the bottle, it just takes it to the next level and makes it a bit more eye-catching. So same here with Steven Johnson's logo for Hero Sports and his business card. Again, it's the mock-up that takes it to the next level. So finding different websites that complement your skill, this is very important. This is actually a video that I made, one of my favorites. This is just a piece that I made for myself. They're kind of going towards each other. The bubbles are moving, the fish are, swimming. So the setting seems like it's underwater, but you can't really tell. There's an elephant in the background, there's a moon. So just a play on realism here.
Questions for Obi, and some people did send some in, but let's see what goes in the chat. Somebody said, can you walk us through your creative process? And it sounds like obviously, like any other design job, time is a major factor, but can you talk about like analytics, research, and going to final visuals?
Yeah, so I would say the mood boarding and just collecting the different assets that you're going to use. And don't forget pulling out the different preferences from your client. That takes more time than doing the actual design. I think it's very important to ask the right questions in the beginning so you're not double working or having to go back in the back end and change things that could have been asked in the beginning, like their color preferences, or getting the client to commit to sending you visual examples so you guys are in the same ballpark on the style, the finish, the overall presentation. Once that's out of the way, designing usually shouldn't take over a week depending on the project. But I would say that takes most of the time. I hope I answered your question there.
Yeah. And to continue that, who's involved, especially with your work with the Falcons, who's involved in review and approval of your pieces?
Well, it depends. That's what I love about this role the most. This is a role that I was really able to put my fingerprint on and tailor the way that I see for it to garner success in our department. So the things that I showed you, like the flyers and the one-offs, things for events, usually that's just all my eyes. There's no input. Again, I'll ask if whoever's requesting that creative, if they have any visual preferences, and usually they don't. So I usually just take an idea in my head and bring it to the finish line there. Now, presentations, that's usually work that's going to be presented by one of our salespeople. So it's very important for me to get inside their head and kind of get into the way that they like to present, whether they like copy on one side and image on one side, or if they like it to be very infographic heavy, very image heavy, and less copy. So I just try to, again, get those preferences up front, kind of pop by when I can throughout the project and just check in and see if they're liking the direction that it's going in. But ultimately, they trust my eye to bring it in the right direction. They know I don't like to work on something 2 or 3 times. So that's, a rapport that we built over time, and that comes with experience as a graphic designer as a whole, right? Not just in this particular industry. It's just, again, knowing the right questions to ask whoever's requesting creatives.
And to clarify, you mentioned it early on that your salespeople are presenting to sponsors. Can you like kind of define that relationship a little bit more, and what a sponsor is and what they're doing and what they're looking for?
Yeah, so sponsors, how I look at it, they um, it's a relationship between an organization and whoever's propping up the event to um, be able to bring in their employees to experience the event. So let me take maybe like a baseball game, for example. So I sell you a sponsorship to be the presenting sponsor of this baseball game. In that deal, you may have, hey, your organization gets 50 tickets from us. They get 50 suite tickets from us. They get 50 bowl tickets from us. The money that they spend on this deal goes towards hiring people to be security at the sponsorship, to hire vendors so everyone has refreshments, to just do different things to make sure that the event is, a great experience to remember, and, just to continue to build rapport between those two. Every sponsorship is different, of course, as you can imagine. So some sponsorships require some kind of maybe buyback to where, hey, if we do this deal, you're AT&T, you agree to buy 1,000 phones from us, right? And that's just an example. I'm not sure what the specific terms of any deal is for AT&T, but just something in that direction. So it's definitely something that both parties gets a great deal of value out of, where one party gets, in on the events and they get visibility is the biggest thing, right? Being able to see your logo, your branding in an event like a FIFA, where they have millions of eyes on this event, and people who don't live in that zone or in that area of the country or maybe region of the country, they get to see like, hey, what is an AT&T? Let me look that up. Or when they're looking for a phone company and they just moved to the US and they see AT&T 50 times, they know that, hey, they had the money to buy a spot at this event, they must be a trusted company. So it's about reputation, it's about brand awareness. But Atlanta being such a unique and hot city, it's about, being able to be involved in that market, such a unique market with people from all over the country.
And so that's interesting. So you're working with sponsors branding, and perhaps other teams branding. So maybe some younger designers are familiar with the idea of co-branding, but you're essentially blending the branding of your team in with other entities. Can you talk about that? Any insight into that? Any challenges? How do you balance the percentage of how much it looks like the Falcons' work and presentation and branding versus how much it might look like a visiting team or a sponsorship?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. So it's, again, a great balance, right? So it's funny you asked that. I met with a corporate partnerships corporate partnerships graphic designer, which is the equivalent role to mine for a Chicago team, multiple Chicago teams. And I watched her presentations and looked over some of her work. And mine, I usually it's our team's branding and I'm fitting your company into that, versus hers is the other way around. It's the company's branding and we're going to fit our team and our players into you guys' branding. So everyone does it a bit different. I think it could probably be more of a lift doing it the way that she does it, but it still looks great, looks awesome. So we have some world-class assets at our stadium, and I don't want to just toot the horn too much, but they're very unique. So it's a great opportunity to be able to put the branding of maybe a small company who's never seen their logo, their branding, their marks on the bright lights in a official league game. So that's something we're always able to do also. Just visually flip it over to them within the stadium, invite them out for maybe, a game or two and show them how things look and how impactful it is. So presentation wise, I try to focus on making them feel like they're becoming part of something big versus the other way around. So I try to keep it focused on our branding and fit them into that, but still, on certain slides, be able to cater to whatever their focus is or whatever their core values are, and just it shows that you're paying attention and you've really done your research on this company you're pitching to.
I mean, it sounds like you have a very active role in that process.
Yes.
Somebody asks, how do you stay inspired? How do you keep things fresh when you're working for the same client? I mean, it sounds like, obviously you do some freelance work, but how do you keep it fresh when it comes to your day job?
Yeah, that's an interesting one too. I would say the number one thing that keeps me fresh and has nothing to do with graphic design. I'm a huge hiker. I did it earlier today. I usually find like a random park or park trail and just go early and, hike and jog quite a bit of miles and tire myself out, come home and take a nap. And usually when I wake up, I'm rejuvenated and energized, right? So that usually helps with just the energy and not feeling the burnout at the end of the week and it carrying over into the next week. That's like my most manual reset. But I believe being in a stadium, it's a newer stadium. It was built it opened in 2017. Still considered like a top 5 busiest stadium in the world. So there's a lot of great people there, a lot of unique people there that you're able to, pause from your work with and go take lunch with, or, pop by and just check in with them. So I think the people definitely help. The work environment, everybody's firing off cylinders. That definitely helps. How busy we are is like a double-edged sword. We're very busy, but you want to be a part of these things and you want to, be on top of your game also. So you just stay in the mix and just, don't look at it from the aspect of things getting stale. You just continue to look for ways to innovate and keep things fresh. And, that it's more people knocking at the door to do what you do. So continue to recreate yourself and evolve what you're doing.
Excellent. So somebody says you mentioned applied analytics and science on your website. Can you talk about how you incorporate analytics and data into your work?
Yeah. So I would say from this role, it will be mainly infographics. So within our department, which is the partnerships department, we have a smaller team, which was created last year, which is the business solutions team. I now report to the leader of that team, and that's his main job, to break down the analytics that comes in for reports year to year, and kind of capitalize on, of course, the superlatives that makes us, just brings us into a good light. So using that to inspire different types of creativity in the graphics, like just finding the picture to where we're able to incorporate the numbers behind the player or just different things. So doing it that way, but also from a personal standpoint, when I using my main focus with small businesses, it was using different tools to see what works as far as what's keeping people's attention on that particular post. Because if you're branding for social media, or if I'm working on something for a social media campaign, it's very important to catch the attention within the first maybe 5 seconds of somebody scrolling past that post, because social media is people competing for attention post by post. So if it's something that somebody's scrolling by and they had no intentions of interacting with it or reading into it, it has to be very eye-catching. So there were different tools and different studies throughout the year that I used to kind of just narrow down what people are paying attention to, what's working, what's not working, similar to the tools on YouTube that will show you, okay, well, people clicked off at the 9-minute mark of this video, or, different things like that. So using that to kind of fuel what works for people.
Got it. Somebody else asks, what other types of clients that you haven't worked with yet would you be interested in working with?
I would love to do something for NASA. That's always been a huge, going through my work earlier, I mentioned how much I love outer space, but, that comes from the agency side, right? Of having that clearance of knowing, okay, certain information doesn't make it out. So I feel like I have that expertise there of keeping certain things in house and being a trusted member to work there. But I've done sports, I've done music. Those are my main passions there. So something NASA related or outer space related.
Maybe you'll go to space.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So here's a question. What role does storytelling or brand narrative play in your work, especially when you're blending brand identity with data-driven strategy?
Good. So it's huge, right? It's huge. With sports, I don't know how many of you are really into sports, but it changes every day. Somebody could be the next big thing one day, and then the next week they're throwing their posters away. So it's very, very important to be strategic on how you tell the story. And we've been afforded the market of Atlanta, the city of Atlanta, to be able to lean into that whenever the team may be going through a transition, or the team is looking for their next face of the franchise, or we have events coming into the city that are bigger than, what the team is doing at the time. So storytelling is very, very important from different aspects, especially, again, how much sports changes. So I like to tell this story often. My first project when I started here, this current role, was taking our quarterback off of all of everything, because my first week there, he was traded to another team. And, being our quarterback for the last, I think he was there like 10, 11 years at that point. So he had won an MVP. He had taken us to the Super Bowl. So he still is a beloved figure in the city, and within the organization. So it was bittersweet taking him down off of everything. But, I understood then that it's important to, be strategic with, okay, what player am I using on this slide? Is this a player who's on the last year of their deal? Is this a player there's rumblings that he's going to get, bought out to another team? And just understanding the rules there. So it'll help you from the aspect of not having to do, double work, to where, there's been instances where I use a certain player and then a couple weeks later he's traded, or something happens where they don't really want to market him the same anymore. So it's very important to be strategic with the way that you tell the story. And I'm working on our soccer team's presentation now, and I'm so excited to get to the storytelling piece there, because we have some exciting things coming this year.
Do you build files differently with that knowledge from your first week? Like, if you have the opportunity, do you separate the players out and composite them to make it easier to remove later if needed?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say, again, you're racing against time and efficiency. So usually when it's something that I just need to get done quick, I'll just, get it out quick. But things that are reoccurring, like the mock-ups and, changing out different slides, I do approach it with some kind of caution on how I'm building and how I'm layering the slides. Whatever designer comes in after me to work on this is probably gonna think I'm a goof. So I just try to layer and name everything correctly. Majority of the time I've been in this role, it's just been me on the design side. I had a junior designer for a short period of while, and she's awesome, but she's moved to the traditional creative team. But most of the time I'm the only one in these files. But just in case someone does come in after me, or I'm able to delegate a project, I try to be strategic on how I'm building the layers out. Yes.
Got it. Well, you said she moved to the general creative team. What does that mean?
So yeah, most sports teams has a in-house creative team that consists of maybe 4 or 5 designers per team. I believe the Chiefs are the only one that has only one designer, and they just, of course, delegate everything out to an agency that they can't do in-house. So we have a great team, and they're like in a whole different side of the building, but we have a great team. I try to visit them as much as I can, just to, be the bridge between the two departments. But I would say it's about 4 or 5 designers per team there. And, it was just a head count thing on why they moved her, but I still have the access and the ability to delegate and pick up projects from them when I can, when everything makes sense. So.
And you mentioned agencies. What kind of work do you send out to agencies?
So I sat with him. This character I met, he's a great guy at the conference in July at MLC Connect. And he basically broke it down like most of the projects that comes in, like their game day, kind of like their game day graphics, is what they delegate. Now the in-house things like the events and things like that, he keeps for himself, or he tries to play mostly like the project manager to be able to, because they use multiple agencies, delegate certain projects to certain agencies. So their game day material, when you have an in-house team, usually that team works on game day and works in productions to be able to change out graphics, or somebody gets a 60-yard catch, be able to put the 60 yards right there in real time. So it's a bit more complicated. I didn't get that information on how they handle their game day, like real time graphics, but that's what he offered up that he delegates, the game day things, the social media things, and he just kind of mostly handles in-house and kind of setting it up to be able to quarterback who's working on what externally.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you.
Yes.
Martina says NASA would be so cool. Tori says, have you seen the NASA graphic standard manual? It's so cool. Yes, I have. That's publicly available online, so anybody can look it up, but we should share it in our Discord. And then Chu says, I'd love to hear what websites and programs you most commonly use.
Websites and programs. I'll start with programs. So, of course, Photoshop, that's where I started. That's what I feel, I would say, slightly more comfortable than anything else, with Illustrator being number 2. For work, in order to keep everything editable, and don't laugh, you guys, we still use PowerPoint for our presentations. So our team is able to just kind of pop in and edit what they can, edit the copy, switch out a picture. So just to keep everything still functional, we use presentations for that, which again is PowerPoint, and to mix it down to where when we send it out, sponsors aren't able to edit it, we'll lock it up in Adobe Acrobat. So we have those there. Every now and then I use InDesign for different things at work, mainly kind of just like compositing how I'm gonna spell out a presentation slide, or maybe some kind of booklet like our staff intros, our welcome package with our different team members. And websites, I would say Envato probably would be my number 1. I use a handful of different ones like that. Yellow Images, Free Pick, that's free PIK. I don't know if I should be plugging all these guys in, but those are probably my top 3, with Envato being the best because they, offer the license right there when you have a subscription with them. Everything is pretty easy to find, and they just have a great variety of everything. So I like the quality there. I believe that was Jeremy earlier who mentioned UX UI, and I'm getting into that also. So I'm working with one of my coworkers now to just ease me into that and what's going on. But looking forward to, getting some certificates in that area and just, learning more. So with that, I've been messing around in Figma and Adobe XD, but that's mostly on my own time and just experimenting. So those are my favorites right now, mostly all Adobe products.
Well, speaking of Jeremy, he asks if you were given the opportunity to redesign the Falcons logo and brand from the ground up, how would you approach that, considering this would be their look for the foreseeable future and fans typically dislike change?
Yeah. That is a great, great question. Well, it's a unique one also because again, I'm a Atlanta area native, so the branding, the logos are near and dear to my heart, especially the throwback logo, like the black and white bird. I have so much gear with the throwback logo on it. So, and I was just thinking to myself, like, could we go back to that, like how the Hawks went back to their old logo? But if I was to rebrand it, one option will be to keep the bird the same. I love the current bird. But just with it being a bird, there's so many different things you could do with the logo. You could make it kind of more like the Ravens logo that's the bird's head. You don't want to copy too many teams who are doing like the wings on the helmet, but there's opportunity there. There's opportunity for, the feathers of the wings on the shoulders. So I feel like just being what it is, it has so much more opportunity to just go either way with it. So I'd explore something like that. But, designing them every day, one thing I would do is add a definite third color. I think we interchange sometimes with our throwback uniforms, our current kind of go back and forth with gold and silver being like one of those interchangeable colors, but I think I would stick with gold. I mean, just, really drive that home as one of our tertiary colors.
Yeah, it's good to have another option, especially when the background color flips or you're on top of like a treated image or something like that.
Yep, great.
Somebody asks, your portfolio spans the CDC, Adidas, and Yeezy concepts and coverage for the Falcons and United. How do you shift your design approach between industries like public health, sports, and luxury fashion?
I think some have the catalyst of just passion, right? Usually fashion, music, and sports, that's the natural passion. Working with the CDC or anything public health wise, or, just government or, hospitals or things like that, it's that, I don't know the word that I'm looking for, just that obligation to contribute to society in some type of way. So I feel like in that way, I'm using my skill to contribute to, make an ad campaign a bit more captivating, where it's getting the attention that they're paying for it to get. Just finding a way to be passionate about what you're doing. So usually just kind of scanning through and looking for something that's really gonna drive it home and make you, excited to get up every day and work on it. So for the CDC, it was definitely that. It was, the COVID campaigns at the time, different things. CDC is, was stationed here primarily. So they just had a bunch of different things going on. This was 2020, 2021 when I was with that company, with the agency, working with the CDC. So that was just what drove it home for me, just looking for a way to use my skill to bolster some kind of change, even if sometimes I might not believe in the full amount of the information that's being presented in this campaign. Just still putting that aside and saying, hey, I want to use my skill to contribute to society in some type of way.
Great answer. Continuing on that, somebody asks, in your CDC holiday travel campaign, you used trivia, games, and quizzes to drive engagement. What inspired that approach, and how did you measure its success?
What inspired that is getting our heads slapped so many times because there was so much that we couldn't do with the CDC. There were so many emojis we couldn't use. There were so many just quotes and um, common sayings that we couldn't use just to make sure we weren't offending anybody, any different culture, any different group. So it was, like I said in the beginning, a lot of red tape on that end. Just the CDC is just overall, um, I could say at least at that time, I'm not sure who's in charge now, but they were very, very hyper focused on not offending anybody, not making posts and campaigns to where the comments is just full of people picking apart what was on the screen. So picking something safe. I'm not sure if I have the Thanksgiving campaign where it's basically like iPhone screenshots. That's one that we almost threw out, but I kept it in the presentation just to make sure the higher ups saw it and they loved it. We repurposed that about 3 or 4 different times to just be captivating because you know, normally when people see screenshots of text messages, that's an attention catcher because you want to know what the conversation was. So going to the side of the question of how do we measure the success, I would say that's more so up to the CDC to decide what the success is. Back then, they wanted to convert these clicks to people signing up for more information about whatever the campaign was, whether it was COVID, whether it was just common diseases around the country or different things. So I would say they measured their success off of conversions, getting clicks to convert over to signups or people registering to administer whatever the call to action was. But we measured our success on, if the CDC was returning to pay for another campaign or work with us again.
Got it. Thank you. Chris asks, how often do you post your work on social media, and what are your favorite platforms to use for sharing work or finding other designers' work for inspiration?
Yeah, I really don't post my work a lot. As much as I used to, I really slowed down on how much projects I'm taking just to, save a bit of creativity and screen time for, the week, just to make sure I'm putting my best foot forward there. But if I do take projects recently, it's just been more so websites, which is kind of tricky to show. So yeah, I've slowed down a lot doing that. I would say recreationally, I've been painting a lot more. I've been kind of being more hands-on with clothes, and this goes back to the question of how I stay inspired or how I stay creative. Alternating from the screen and doing something creative that has nothing to do with the screen. So again, clothing, like sewing clothes, embroidering. My mom crochets, so I would give her ideas sometime and go and pick those clothes up, or again painting. So those are kind of hard. I won't say they're hard to share, but they're more just personal projects. So whenever I do get back to the clothing, I would love to share those. But it was another, what websites do I use so my number one favorite is Behance. And I believe that's another Adobe. Behance is my number one favorite. It's amazing work on there. You're able to comment, you're able to sometimes get a breakdown of how they came up with it. A lot of creators or designers post in the form of a case study, so you're able to just get into their mind and see what tools they use. Sometimes they post what fonts they use or what programs they use to build this art. So Behance will be number one, and Dribble would be number two. If you ever have heard of Dribble with an extra B, those are my top two favorites by far.
Yeah, Behance and Dribble are the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We have a question. Looking back on your 15 plus years of experience, what's been the most significant lesson you learned about evolving as a designer?
The most significant lesson I've learned, I would say, another one will probably come to me later on today when I think about this question. But I would say again, going back to what I mentioned earlier about just asking the right questions in the beginning. I'm sure every designer here has got a client who just says, hey, just make something cool, just make it cool. And like your definition of cool might be totally different of my definition of cool. So it's always important to make them commit to, sending visuals in. And I say that in the beginning before any money is exchanged, before any commitments are there, that, hey, like, I'm serious about this. This is a mandatory component to moving forward for you to send visuals, even if I send them a Behance or a Dribble link with what they're looking for already searched in the bar. So, it's right there in their face and they can just screenshot what they like. That's the most important component for me because it saves so much time, so many revisions down the line when from the jump, you already know what they're looking for, the style of it, the way they want it to look when it's all done, like the texture, just different things. So getting those commitments in the beginning not only saves you that, but it cuts down the confusion or prevents the client from being able to manipulate more work than they asked for in the beginning. Like if they say, well, I wanted an all black background in the beginning, there's no way that you can go down the line and say, well, I asked for green in this, so you just get everything in the beginning and let them know, hey, we're going to commit to this, and anything outside of that, it's going to be, a different package that we talk about. So just getting the information that you need up front has been the most important thing for me. And that's even in the role that I'm in today.
This one's for me. Do you have relationships with the players? Like, do they know who you are and do they know what you do?
The only current player that I was on like a name basis with, he just left the team. He's with the 49ers now. It's a safety. Every time he sees me, we chop it up for a short time. And we met through the My Cause, My Cleats initiative that every team does every year, where they link up with different youth designers or different causes or foundations that the players already support and get kids to design cleats for them. It's an amazing, amazing program. So I met him through that. We picked out 3 kids who aspire to be designers. They also win a free Microsoft Surface in the process. So, they get that extra tool to go home and practice on things with. So met him through that, and he's been great. But there's a handful of we call them legends, our former players, our alumni who know me on a name basis. And that feels amazing because some of these guys I grew up, watching, or grew up wearing their jersey or coming to the game to watch them. And now they're like, hey, Obi, it's surreal. But yeah, definitely love the aspect of it.
Cool. Yeah, they should get a good with the designer. You can put them front and center on the posters.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I let them know every chance I get. Hey, I'll put you on a slide or two, helping out with your marketing.
We do have another question. Jeremy says, in freelance gigs, how do you deal with scope creep?
Yeah, that's why I go through the questions in the beginning and I let them know in the invoice or the contract, however we're handling the agreement, that like, okay, anything outside of, and I've used scope a few times, anything outside of the scope of what you've provided in the description, your instructions, will be an extra charge depending on what it is. Now, if it's just like, hey, let me just get a different font, I don't really like the one that I chose, now that's different. But if it's something like, hey, let's make a second flyer with, things switched around and it's a whole new feel, it's important to, highlight in the beginning that, that will be an extra package that's outside of what we're doing, or you could go ahead and add that option now to be able to add that on, but just be able to create the expectation in their mind that, hey, like, let me go ahead and provide all the information I can now, that way they're taking it as serious as possible for their color concepts, their everything, to make sure it's there. And just like Steve said, just really make them commit to it. So when you present it to them very, I hope stern isn't a bad word right now, but just in a stern way, to just, because if you bring it to their attention that way, they're usually expecting something big to be like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. But you bring it to them stern, but it's something that is really expected. It just kind of rewards their attention to it, to like, okay, he's serious about this, but it's something that I can do. Let me really do my research and lay out what I need for this project. So those are, again, my favorite things to highlight is what I've learned as a designer through the years.
Sounds like you handle it well. What are you looking to do in the future of your career? Are there any areas or roles that you'd like to take on that you haven't done yet?
Where do I look to take it? This particular role, I just want to continue to shape it to where everything just works seamlessly, to where everything, like expectations, as far as like right now, I'm expected to be done with a certain presentation for a certain team in August, and then move to the next one by October. Just to make sure that's a well-oiled machine, to where year to year, I'm getting the input I need, I'm getting the information I need, and I'm also clearing out my workload to be able to handle those asks and those requests, to be able to hold the right bandwidth to handle everything. Because in addition to that, you still have requests that come in that's tied to revenue, and that's going to be just as important as the big projects. And also, with us being, a growing company, being able to be a part of whatever new project comes in, whether it's a renovation in the stadium that brings some naming rights, and we're able to sell that as an asset, being able to be, hands-on in the process, from the renderings all the way to, the physical, putting the sign on the wall. So just staying involved is what I'm looking forward to, and just continuing to grow the role. This is a unique role in sports. Not everyone has a designer dedicated to the partnership side. A lot of times it's, again, that 10 people design team who just takes a partnership project every now and then, but not everyone has a designated partnerships designer, and not every team has multiple teams, under their company umbrella, which we have 3 right now, counting all the events in the stadium and concerts and things like that. So just continuing to make it my own, so where, in the end, when I hang my designer cleats up, I'm able to say, I gave it my all.
Yeah. All right. Well, we don't have any more questions. Thank you, Obi. That was great.
Yeah, it was. This was really fun.